Hello, everybody. Buddy with Midland, Texas. Do a little short video here. I think it's going to be fact-filled, amazing. I recently did a podcast earlier this week. You can see I made a little short video about the podcast called Cheap Pops Coast to Coast, and I'm going to just open that up real quick. This is not the podcast. This just tells you about the podcast. But when you click on the description right here is the URL that will take you over to the podcast. Okay. And so while I was sitting there, telling this story, after I was done, of course, I'm thinking back. I'm thinking, one person that I forgot to add in on the many people that have documented saying that tunnels, underground homes are here was the sheriff candidate Joe Lozano, and that's a big deal, because he said painters ain't out here. And, it just happens because there's just so many people documented saying these underground homes and tunnels are here. And it's believed to be connected with multiple murders. And, it's to the point of absurdity. Like, how much evidence do you need, or how many people have to be murdered before something is going to happen? So that's really where I started with the Facebook post tonight. And I started right here. You'd see I posted an hour ago. And I said, one of the many people who have said that underground homes were here told me they were having pizza or pedophile parties down there, okay? And so my first comment was, she had many details which convinced me this was true, such as how many underground homes there were. There's 4 of them. How many bedrooms they had. 3 bedrooms apiece. How deep they were. She said at least 25 foot. And how much they cost. She said over $1 million each. Was saying that they were having pizza or pedophile parties. That's a whole bunch of details, And obviously she's telling the truth. That seems to confirm the theory that a 14 to 21-year-old girl was murdered there at a 2010 oil show party. Remember, Angie told me about a young girl was murdered at an oil show party. I secretly recorded this phone call, so it's not Buddy said, she said. You can hear it for yourself, and she was one of the many people saying these underground homes are here, okay? So I have a video called $1 Million Underground Homes, and here I've got it already linked here, and we're just going to listen to just a minute of it.
This is not. I even asked them. I asked them about the pizza parties. They said they're not called pizza parties, but I know what you're talking about.
Right, the pedophile parties.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, and then there's more than that, but I think that was the one bit. She there's a lot of clues in there. She mentions a guy over in New Mexico. Town starts with an A-S. Now it's believed that town was Artesia, a little oil field. Richard's man in New Mexico lives in Artesia. He owned an oil company over there, and which sold to Concho here in Midland, okay? And I posted on Facebook a Facebook post that said it was called Artesia Suspects, and about 4 hours later, I see where Vice President Pence was flying to the tiny town of Artesia. I long suspected Pence was involved in trying to cover up, and what I really believe is these oil companies who don't want this to be made public were offering bribes. Oh yeah, we'll give you millions of dollars for your campaign if you help us cover up these murders, and these underground homes, because that's not good for the stock price. That's what I was guessing. My next comment was, another woman named Rhonda Denman Rogers told me on Facebook Messenger that an underground facility is a half block away. Obviously, this is one of the 4 underground homes that already been told about, and I've suspected that underground home was in an empty lot around the corner, which is a half block away. That home on Westmont Court had the same mortar problem that my home had, which is believed to have been from digging under the home, and it also had a water well there. The east neighbor of mine has a water well next to where it's believed the underground homes is here. I think the water wells and the mortar problem is a clue to finding them other homes. This is right around the corner on Whittle Way, and basically where Whittle Way runs into the it dead ends right there into the wall that separates, commercial, residential, where Home Depot's back there. So you got this big open lot. Well, it seems like a perfect place for another one of the underground homes. There's a water well there. And here's this house on Westmont Court, and it had the same mortar problem my home had, which I believe is from digging under the home. Basically, you dig under it and the home settles, down because the foundation, and when it does, it breaks the mortar joints. And so that's what I suspected, that maybe one of the 4 underground homes I was told about was here. And interestingly, the guy that lives here is a safety manager for Concho. Remember I said a minute ago on that phone call where the woman was saying, there was a guy in New Mexico, he sells his $1 billion oil company to Concho, and around the corner this home's owned by Concho, and that's where I'm suspecting one of the other 4 underground homes is. That might be where that little girl was murdered at. That might have been where the wholesale parties were at. I just suspect they're in the underground homes. A CAD programmer from Houston named Layla O'Brien told me that she worked on this underground safe house project, which was completed in 1987. She named the company that she worked for on a recorded phone call and said that it was put in for George H.W. Bush, that's the dad, who was then vice president under Reagan and from Midland. Okay, remember, he later became president. The budget was $7.35 million in 1980 money. Okay, I asked her if she had to sign a non-disclosure agreement, and she said, I had to sign more stuff for that job than any other job I've ever worked. Of course, the NDA can't be used to cover up capital crimes. Let's get that clear. You can't get somebody to sign an NDA so you can go murder people, right? I've wondered if they've used Bush as an excuse to cover up the multiple murders believed to be connected with these underground homes and oil show parties. Okay, and so here's the video link: Bush houses in Midland, Texas. First, we'll look at a screenshot. Layla O'Brien, $7.35 million. I says, what is that, Miles? Million, and that's what she's telling me on permit. The cost of the project. It was called Safehouses. Okay, Safehouses for a vice president of the United States. That's one reason I don't go digging and try to break into it. It'd be like breaking in Fort Knox. We already know it's armed and dangerous criminals backed up by a secret police murder gang, right? That's where real law enforcement has to come in. And here, on this video called Bush Safe Houses, I secretly recorded Layla O'Brien. We're just going to listen to just a bit of it, and she names the company that she works for. There's more in this video.
But I was wondering who paid for the underground, the $7.35 million. Who was you contracting to?
Probably KR.
That was your company, right?
No, PBK.
Oh, another.
So she was a CAD programmer, and she names the companies that she worked for. Legitimate press, legitimate law enforcement, they could follow that up. You know that's true. That's all there is to it. There's too many people saying the same thing. Judy Chris Zohorza told me that it was front page news when it was built, but they said it was salt vaults to store surplus oil. That made me wonder how deep it is. Maybe they're 100, 200 foot deep, I don't know. I just know I've just told it was at least 25. This statement made me wonder how deep they were. She also said that the people working down there said it was houses. Okay, that confirmed what I'd been told by several other people. So we knew it was $1 million project put in by the government, right? So I mean, maybe the people going, "Why don't you get a backhoe and dig?" Knowing that you can't dig 150 foot down, and they're giggling over there. Ha ha! We're going to cover up. We're going to keep raping and murdering little girls. Ha ha ha! No, that's not how that works. Here's Judy's the print screen what she's told me. It says, but they said it was salt vaults to store surplus oil. But if you talk to teenagers that help work on it, they said it was houses. Okay, and so that was just one more of the many people documented saying they're here. Yet another person told me to go look at my address, 3802 Fair Circle, Midland, Texas, on Google Maps and at maps.google.com. And to my surprise, I see a large building or bunker in the backyard on the map screen, which can't be seen from above ground on the satellite screen. This is obviously one of the underground homes that I was told about by multiple people. Okay, so you can do this yourself. You just go to Google Maps, maps.google.com, put in my address, 3802 Fair Circle, and then you just look at the map screen, and then you compare it over to the satellite screen. And this is what you'll see right here, okay? This here is the satellite screen. You don't see anything in my backyard. This is the map screen, and there's a big building in my backyard. See, that's my home. That's my home. Here's the backyard. Here's the backyard. There's a large building in my backyard. obviously one of the four underground homes that's told about, and where the also parties were going at. Okay, this big map come from Google Earth. It's historical, so it was dated in June 2011. And what I'm showing here is you could see where the ground was cut behind Home Depot. The asphalt's a different color coming out of Home Depot, and you project that out, it goes directly to my house, okay? Actually right to my den. And that woman on that phone call on the $1 Million Underground Homes, she says it goes to your den, And you can listen to that and hear her say that. If you project this out, it goes to my den, okay? You know, and so here's where I'm showing. I was here with Homeland Security 2 weeks later. I showed them where the human trafficking murder tunnel was at. And 2 weeks later, they were digging all that up, pouring concrete. And I believe they were tampering with evidence to cover up capital murders, you know. And if that's the case, then, you know, I mean, that's death penalty stuff right there. You can't do that, right? I mean, we're talking capital murders. They murdered that little girl, forced prostitution, you know. It's like, you prostitute or we're going to kill you. That's what it was. That's what Angie told me. That little girl didn't want to prostitute, they murdered her, okay? And so that's capital, you know, that's a death penalty case. And then if you go in and try to pour concrete, try to cover it up, capital murder, that's a death penalty case, okay? In October 2010, my friend from work, Angie McGee Hurley, told me about a young girl that was murdered at an also party that she was at, which was 5 minutes from my home. I know this because we talked on the phone while she drove there, and that can be verified by the call records. I believe that she was driving from here to the Home Depot store, parking there, and then coming back here via tunnel, which could be seen on old Google Earth maps with the also parties in the underground homes. In 2013, the remains of a 14 to 21-year-old black girl was found outside of Midland, and it makes sense. This was the girl that Angie told me about, okay? And then I have a video link here, also party murder, and that video is packed with all kinds of, you know, leads and clues, and I believe this person knows and that person knows, you know, that I name names. I'm going to show you here. Okay, this is an update from Midland Crime Stoppers, July 26th. This was just a few weeks ago, and Texas Rangers did a DNA analysis, and the young girl that they found, the 14 to 21-year-old girl they found, they now say that she's a black girl. Okay, so you know, and I even made a video. Maybe that's why they were covering it up, because she was a black girl, you know. But I've long suspected this girl found in 2013, right here, August 2013, was the one Angie told me about that was murdered at the also party because she didn't want a prostitute, you know. And I tried to get Angie to report that murder, and she was afraid and told me high-level police were there. I do have this link here, 2010 also party murder, and I'll hit just a minute of it.
And if you've seen a recent video, they were back there tearing up the ground and pouring concrete. Because, see, I was back there behind Home Depot showing Homeland Security all this area on July 2nd of this year, okay? Here's the large parking lot in front. Now, remember, if you got a large amount of people there, then they're going to have a lot of park.
Right, they're going to have a lot of parking spots. That's the point I'm making here. See, I was at Home Depot one day, and I was telling my story to a clerk, and she just blurts out, if you happen to see a lot of cars in the parking lot late at night, it's because we're stalking, you know. And I hadn't seen her, I hadn't asked or whatever. But you think about it, a lot at the oil show party, international oil show party, would have a lot of people. They need a lot of parking, right? And, you know, we already seen where the tunnel's coming from there over to my house out of the back of Home Depot. And I believe Angie, in 5 minutes, she drove around from my house, parked here, went there, went underground, and come back over here. Everybody at the party come back, use that tunnel to get to the underground homes, and that's where that little girl was murdered at. Maybe her DNA is in that tunnel that's now filled with concrete, and so we can talk to Homeland Security agent Paul, and and find out what his procedure is when a citizen reports a human trafficking murder. Do they pour concrete to cover it up? That's what we need to be asking him. Very serious. Mike Lawhon, the 27-year-old previous owner of my home, died the week before the 2008 oil show started, with conflict in statements of where he died at. Now think how coincidental that is, since in my backyard is an underground home where they're having oil show parties, and he died the week before with conflict in statements of where he died at. The Odessa American posted a death notice saying he died in Fort Worth, but then 4 days later they posted a second death notice and changed the location of death to say he died at his residence, which was here in Midland. This confirmed what a former neighbor, Marilyn DeLuigi, had told me twice. She also said that somebody else had died here before him, and another guy, Aaron Peckelhofer, asked me if I knew the names of the 4 people who had been murdered, died in my home. What I'm going to show you here is print screens from the Odessa American, okay? They have just recently deleted this, and once again, somebody might say that that's tampering with evidence to try to cover up capital murder, okay? And you know, that should be investigated, but here this is posted on October 14th, 08, and it says that Mike died in Fort Worth, okay? And then 4 days later, posted on the 18th, they posted a second death notice, and they changed the location of death to say he died at his residence, which was here in Midland. That was this home that was for sale I had already looked at, okay? And so, you know, that is totally unheard of. His death certificate says he died in Fort Worth. I believe that they killed him here and they took him to Fort Worth and sold the home to the next sucker. They did that because the next week was the oil show party. I suspect they killed him because the oil show party was fixing to start. Okay. During the election for Midland Sheriff last year, I was on the phone and telling my story to Sheriff candidate Joe Lozano, and we were talking about the underground homes when he informed me that they were the hideout for the late Sheriff Gary Painter. I was secretly recording him and made this into a YouTube video that went viral, but this huge news was then hidden from the voting public by our press. Angie had told me that high-level police were at the oil show parties where the young girl was murdered, and I now suspect that Painter was one of those high-level police that Angie was afraid of. That's why she was afraid to go report that murder, okay? And the picture I show you here is a picture of Gary Painter right here. He's a famous Texas sheriff. He's like the longest-serving sheriff, state of Texas, you know, and here he is with his good buddy, George Bush. And you know, and guess who they said that these underground homes are put in for? For the Bushes, actually his dad, okay? And here I have that. What Joe Lozano didn't know is I secretly recording him, and this went viral right here. And I'm gonna show you right here. This is the video, Sheriff Painter's hideout, and I'm talking to Joe on the phone. Listen to this. You know, that was Painter's hideout thing. That's what Joe Lozano said. And they recently arrested Joe Lozano. And, you know, and what I suspected happened is that as this was cover up, they're going, well, let's arrest him, frame him, whatever. And now we'll threaten him with prison if he don't change his story. I really believe that's what happened because that's what goes on around here, you know. Okay, here's another person. Tisha Ann Wilkinson Brumley told me, I've had friends and been involved in those oil show parties. They're exactly what you say. They are underground homes. I took a screenshot of this because you know, this is one more person. It's like, how many people do you need? How many people have to be murdered before we can find real law enforcement? And I'll just read it from you. Tisha Ann Wilkinson Brumley says, buddy, I've had friends and been involved in those oil show parties. They're exactly what you say. There are underground homes. My sister used to do the oil show parties, and I got close to them before she shut that down. Okay, took a print screen of that. Now that would be big if it was one person saying it, and look how many people are confirmed. Okay. On July 2nd, 2019, I met Homeland Security Agent Paul at the Midland Home Depot store, and I showed them where I believed the tunnel was located going from there to the underground home in my backyard. It was easy to see where it was from old Google Earth maps. We looked at it earlier. I believe this tunnel was used by Angie and the other people at the 2010 oil show party, including the young girl that was murdered there, and could have DNA evidence in it, but 2 weeks later, the ground was dug up and concrete was poured there. I suspected that some oil company owners were bribing and pressuring some elected officials and law enforcement to cover up the capital murder of that little girl and didn't want the public to find out because that wouldn't be good for stock prices, okay? I'm going to show you here some screenshots. I was back here behind Home Depot. My home's on the other side of that wall right there. Over here's Home Depot. This is a secluded trucking lane behind Home Depot. You can see it actually right here on this picture. That's where they're at, okay? And here you can see where the ground was cut, where the tunnel comes comes to my den, right to my house. That's where I believe the people in the oil show party, they used that tunnel, and they were parking in the parking lot out front. And one of the underground homes is here. Another one's a half block away. Remember, it's owned, in that home on Westmont Court. So anyways, here they are 2 weeks after I show Homeland where I believe this human trafficking murder tunnel is, and their job's to stop human trafficking. Then next thing you know, there's people, they're digging up the ground, they're pouring concrete. I'm going to show you just a minute of this. I happen to get it on video. You can see the concrete coming off the truck.
Looks like the last homeowner, Michael Alhan, died in 2008. Then I'm ambushed and shot.
I mean, I don't know how you can get any dirtier than that. How much blatant cover-up you can get. Another person that I believe could verify these underground homes is Lance Eggleston, because he told me, we have access to your residence at all times. Nobody will ever believe your story. You will be silenced, not if, but when. And you know what he's talking about? My story of somebody under my home shooting me. That's what he's saying. He's confirming the underground access to my home, and that was it. Remember, we know who you are. We know where you sleep. We have access to your residence all times. No one will ever believe your story. We will come again. This is one of many death threats that I've gotten since I survived a capital murder attempt, okay? And then you will be silenced, not if, but when. And I'm like, when are you going to murder me, Lance? And I took a print screen of this and emailed it to the then chief of police, Robinson, which they ignored it, and just lawlessness is what's going on. That's another felony. In January 2012, I called the El Paso DEA and then the Midland DEA and reported a suspected tunnel, but they didn't look. And 2 weeks later, I was ambushed and shot with my phone lines cut. I believe that somebody at the DA office also knows about these underground homes and or set me up to be murdered because I had reported crime to them. This reminded me of that story about Whitey Bulger. There's a movie made out of it called Black Mass, if you remember, and I think Depp was in it. But basically, a guy comes into the FBI office and he reports, that them gang members, whatever, and the FBI was dirty, and he gets set up to be murdered. Okay, that's very much like what happened to me. I go to the DEA saying, "Hey, I believe there's a suspected tunnel here," and 2 weeks later, I'm ambushed and shot with my phone lines cut. And I think the guy John Connolly was the FBI agent. He got 50 years in prison for that. And that's looked like what's going on here. The other question is, I wonder how many other people have called the Midland DEA office and reported some crime, and now they're dead. And ain't nobody put it together that somebody's working at the DEA office, and as soon as some guy like me calls up there and reports crime, next thing you know, they're dead, Okay, and I'm going to keep on going. In 2019, I finally got the long withheld police report for the night that I'd been ambushed and shot by somebody under my home, and it timestamped 5 Midland police officers, Davis, Dickey, Chatwell, Angel, and Hale, as being at or inside my home when they were not seen arriving on the security cameras that had seen Woodward and Naylor just minutes earlier, okay? All my other doors were secured with extra locks. That's how it's proven they were under my home and had entered via a now removed trap door that the ex-wife had already told me about and from where I had been ambushed and shot from. The evidence shows, without a doubt, I wasn't shot with my gun, and we know where I shot from. That is 5 more people that would know where these underground homes are at. And I think it's very possible they were also there when the young girl was murdered at the underground oil show party in 2010. And see, this information didn't come out until 2019 when I got the police report for the night of the murder attempt back in 2012. It was subpoenaed in 2013. They illegally withheld the police report. So I didn't know it existed. For 7 years, I didn't know this police report existed. And why did they do that? Because it incriminated law enforcement. That's why, because it time-stamped them police officers at or in my home when they wasn't seen entering the door. And that's how we know they were under my home, And actually, the ex-wife had told me in so many words there was a large party going on that night, and a lot of people were there. So it's believed that there's a whole bunch of people with the murder party on the night that I was ambushed and shot, And basically, this is just taking the police report of the security cameras and going, I crawled out at 10:42. Woodward shows up. Naylor shows up at 19 minutes later. And then here, Dickey and Davis shows up. And then Lieutenant Dickey is inside my home, 11:05. 4 minutes after Woodward or Naylor was seen, Dickey's inside my home, and he is not seen arriving on the security cameras. I actually believe that Dickey is the one that let out the trap burglar that was in my guest bathroom. And what was happening was these police were working with these burglars that are breaking into the homes and getting in the attic, and they're part of that crime ring. And that's how come when I reported them felonies of these burglaries at my home and all these other homes where there people reporting people in the attic, they're not investigating, they're not arresting anybody because they're involved in that organized crime. It's racketeering, is what it is. And then we see Greg Chatwell, Kenny Angel, Dylan Hale. They're all here. This is all before the security camera is disabled. Okay, so that's where at all times sent 5 police officers, and so there's 5 more people right here that can be, we can talk to, because one, for a fact, you have the remains of a little girl that was found. There's a Crime Stoppers on that. There should be a real investigation by law enforcement, and you do that exposes underground homes and the people that know about it, and these are the people that know about it. And so, as I started this video, I did this recent podcast. I had forgot about Joe Lozano. It's because there's so many people documented saying underground homes and tunnels are here, and I will say that, I want to give God all the praise and glory. It's a miracle I'm alive. They planned on me being dead. And the other thing is, I know there's a lot of good people here in Midland. They're not okay with, police assisting with, killing one homeowner after another, underground pedophile parties and all that. I'm not okay with it. I don't know any decent human being is okay with what's going on here. This has to change. We need it exposed ASAP. This Buddy Webb.